All right, shalom, shalom. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachah Kodash. I want to give double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessing and many salutations to you, elect Dakiam, across the four winds of this earth, kicking this word in sincerity and in truth. I'm the brother Sha'ar from the Great Millstone Dallas camp, coming at you all with another lesson through the Spirit, Lord willing us edifying. And as we see here, the time that we're approaching, we have the Pesach, which is right around the corner. All right, this coming Saturday, actually, on the 7th, starting at sundown. That's when the Pesach, or how we say it in English, is Passover. That's approaching. All right, and when you go into the feast of the Passover, it's a very particular feast that the Lord wants us to hold, but more so, that feast is more of a symbolic representation on how we ought to be, okay, and going into the feast, the supper, the bread, okay. Certain scriptures call it the feast of sweet bread, all right. Other ones call it the feast of unleavened bread, okay. But when you go into it for a whole 7 days straight, well, you read it in the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter. Matter of fact, I might as well get it. Just going to bring out the point going into the unleavened bread, okay. Because when you look at this, of course, we had to physically do this, but more so that was a physical representation of something that we are to rehearse spiritually, okay. Now, this is Exodus chapter 12, verse, let me start at verse, I'm going to just go straight to the point. In verse 15, Exodus 12 and 15, it says, 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day unto the second day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. And that's a rehearsal that we do, okay? That's a law that we were commanded to follow back then and even today, okay? So we're supposed to look at everything in our cabinets, and if it has any type of yeast extract or yeast or leaven, whatever that is, we're supposed to take it out of our houses for those 7 days, okay. And there's also certain foods that you might not really expect to have that yeast in it, okay. Certain chips that you eat, all right. I know there's a lot of jalapeno chips and garlic chips. When you look at a lot of those, they have yeast extract in them, okay. So these are things that we're supposed to be mindful over, because yes, Esau does put yeast in a bunch of things. And of course, you do it to the best of your ability. Do it in sincerity and diligence, okay? But I mean, at the end of the day, we are rehearsing the righteous acts, okay? So all we can do is take out what we know, what we believe has yeast in it, okay? But the reason why I wanted to go into that scripture there, okay, because that speaks spiritual volumes as well, okay? Verse 16 says, and in the first day there shall be an holy convocation, and in the 7th day there shall be a holy convocation to you. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that salaki, that only may be done of you, okay. And those holy convocations, again, are the Shabbats, okay. They're high holy days. Well, I mean, you know, the Passover is a high holy day, but 7 days after that, okay, the Feast of Unleavened Bread ends, but it's still a holy convocation because it's the Shabbat, okay. Verse 17, and ye shall observe the Feast of Unleavened Bread, for in this selfsame day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall ye observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever. So this is something that we follow. Now, the reason why I wanted to go into that actual physical example of keeping the Feast of the Passover, keeping the Feast of Unleavened Bread, making sure we have the leavens out of our homes, we need to also make sure that we look at ourselves, because yes, we do represent a dwelling, okay. This flesh that we're in right now is a dwelling, and our spirit dwells within it, and also too the spirits of Yahweh and Yahweh Shai dwell within this temple, okay. And also too what dwells within this vessel, all right, as I should say, is part of the old man that needs to be shut off, which is a daily process, okay. So within me going into this, going into the Passover, going into the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and how we're supposed to have that leaven taken up out of our house, that old man and those old man's ways need to be taken out as well, okay. Now, of course, we don't just, not just saying it as, you take the old man out for those 7 days. Of course not. But as we are approaching the Passover, this is something that we need to all be constantly working on. All right. Are we offending? Are we doing particular things that aren't spiritual? All right. Are we taking heed to those things? There's a lot of times when you're stuck in your own ways on doing particular things, you don't really know that those things you're doing could be leaven. All right. And certain times, brothers might have to break that to you. Okay. Or certain times it might come out. All right. Just so a brother will peep it and be able to tell you about it. That way it could save your soul and save that brother's soul. Okay. But this is something that we're all supposed to be working on right now, especially since we're approaching the time of the Passover, but more so since we are approaching the very end of this society. All right. I mean, we see this coronavirus being spread like crazy. I mean, it's definitely became a global pandemic. Just within the States, there's over 80 cases that have been detected with this virus. What else do you see going on? A bunch of these different groups going off within their own doctrine, wayward doctrine, and so forth. Okay, what's happening, man? Okay, so, I mean, as I was explaining earlier, one sec, somebody just passed me. I'm at work right now, so, of course, not doing this lesson with a bunch of people by me, but somebody just happened to walk on by. But as I was going into it earlier, you see these other groups with their wayward doctrine saying John the Baptist wasn't in the truth. I mean, it's all spiritual why these things are taking place right now, because it's being made manifest as the days go in that we are at the very end. Okay, and as the Apostle Peter made the statement in the book of 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, he says, what manner of people or persons are you ought to be in all holy conversation and godliness? And when you read up before that, it goes into how the elements were going to perish, are going to be dissolved within that fervent heat. And that goes into that destruction. And if we don't purge these different ways, if we don't purge this leaven out that's within us, there's a chance that we could be partakers within that destruction. And that's a very fearful thing. As the scriptures say, it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living power. All right, so these are things that we work on. As the scriptures say in Sirach, the 18th chapter, the 24th verse, I believe it's 18 to 24. It says, before judgment, examine thyself. Okay. Matter of fact, no, it's I believe it's in verse 24. I'm sorry, verse 21. Verse 24 goes into, think upon the wrath of the Lord before he turns his face away. Okay, but we're approaching the time of judgment, and it's obvious. If you're a spiritual person, you can see this. So within us being spiritual people, knowing that every one of us sin, knowing that we're all in this wretched carnal flesh, these are things that we all can work on to get better and purge out so we can be a new lump. Because there's certain ways that's in us and they're being projected and shown amongst the body. Those ways can get grafted on to different brothers that might be younger in the spirit. They might feel like particular things might be okay. All right. Whether it's a lifestyle that you live, whether it's a way that you might conduct yourself in certain fashions when you're around brothers. All right. And, I mean, there's an abundance of different things that could be shown. But as the scriptures say, and I'm going to get it here in 1 Corinthians 5, but the scriptures say a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. Okay. And we want to make sure that we don't have that leaven within us so that whole lump won't be leavened. Okay. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 5. Matter of fact, I'm going to start at verse 6. It says, your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump? All right, and what that leaven is, okay, matter of fact, I want to see what this word is in the Greek, because that leaven is what's put into that bread to make it rise up, okay? Or yeast, I should say, that yeast. Now, when you go into this word leaven here in the Greek, the word there is zyme. Now, when you go into that word zyme, it says leaven, but it says a metaphor. It says of inveterate mental and moral corruption, viewed in its tendencies to infect others. All right. So there's particular things. And if we don't, there's particular things that might be within us. And if we don't leaven these things, if we don't weed these things out or mortify these things out of us, it can become a virus and it could corrupt the whole unit of brothers that surround you. All right. Certain brothers might see certain behavior that we might have and think that it's okay. Okay, certain brothers might see a particular behavior of how you might live. They might go to your house, see how you live, and think that it's okay. All right, whether it's a diet habit, you might diet yourself a certain type of way, and you know in your spirit that you ain't supposed to be eating that stuff. All right, and if your brother sees you doing it, then he could start doing it, and then multiple people could start doing that. All right, at the end of the day, it could be a domino effect that could take place, and that's why it's important for us to monitor these particular things, because that little leaven can leaven the whole lump if it's not checked. That's why we're told to purge these things out of us. That's why when you go into it, it said in metaphor, a mental and moral corruption. All right, and every single last one of us are incorruptible flesh. So I definitely ain't talking like I'm perfect. Okay, because I know in myself, and I know other brothers could vouch for themselves, that there's things that could be taken out. Okay, that way we all can be a new lump. Okay, and we understand that there's certain things that we go through here in this flesh that you might need to conquer, but a lot of it even goes into just winning little battles at a time. Okay, we was talking about it in a class that we did a few weeks back, going into trimming your lamps. And when you go into trimming, you know, trimming is like, when you think of trimming isn't just getting a giant axe and just whacking away at a tree and the whole tree falls down. No, it takes time for that tree to fall down, and you got to keep on hacking and hacking and hacking. All right, and then eventually it'll fall. Okay, and that's if this, of course, if the Spirit's dealing with us. Okay, but when you continue to read, it says, leaven is applied to the substance, which is in small quantity, yet thoroughly pervades a thing by its influence. And it says in the New Testament, it uses Matthew chapter 13, verse 33, negative sense, a little leaven leaveneth the whole. So as you continue back in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7, it says, purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even a Mashiach, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. Okay, and that purge, man, that when you go into that word, it also means to be set apart. Okay, and we don't want to approach not even only just the Passover, but of course the Passover, but even being the end, knowing that these doors are getting ready to close for the ark, knowing that we're at the very end, all these things are taking place. We see pestilence and plagues approaching Mystery Babylon, which we know and believe is America. Okay, we want to make sure that we're spiritually in check, spiritually disciplined, to be able to stand when all these things take place. And if there's leaven that's within us, that could damn well hinder not only our growth, but hinder the growth of the different men that's around us. Okay, so these are things that we all need to check. These are things that we all need to check. Okay, and yes, we are approaching a season where these different things are being presented before particular brothers, and it's not necessarily in a negative way. All right, but when I say different things, maybe you might act a particular way around certain brothers, or might do something around brothers, and they might catch it, you know, and when they catch it, it's going to be notified to you. All right, at the end of the day, it goes into the mercy of the Lord, and we're approaching a time where spiritually, you know, these things are being shown, all right, and are being checked. Okay, that way we can approach this Passover and also this introduction to the end with a clean slate and a clean conscience. Okay, and let me see here if there was any other precepts. Let's see. It's a little more to this in verse 8. It says, therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. Okay, and this is the Apostle Paul speaking to the church in Corinth, but also as he's speaking to the church in Corinth, he's also speaking to us today, because we do represent the church today. All right, and just as he had told the church of Corinth these things, he's also speaking unto us today, because just as you see certain things that brothers might be doing, you see certain things in yourself that you might be doing, best believe it wasn't no different than those brothers back then in the ancient world. Okay, they were being called out for particular things. They were self-examining themselves on particular things that they see themselves doing. All right, and they worked at it. But that unleavened bread ultimately represents sincerity and in truth, and that leaven goes into malice, wickedness, and all different types of things that might be in you that won't give you the advantage when all hell breaks loose. It could possibly hold you back and cause you to error. So we want to make sure that we're all working on these particular things so we can eat of this bread worthily. Okay? Because at the end of the day, we're all partakers and we're all eating up of the bread. We're all eating up of the feast. Okay? But we want to make sure that we're doing things that cause us worthy to be able to eat up of this feast. You understand? So I'm going to end it off on that. Lord willing, this short lesson was edifying. It was just on my spirit to go into this during my lunch break. But I'm going to end it off on that. Lord willing, this was edifying. I want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I want to give double honors to our apostles and our elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessing and many salutations to you, elect Dakyam, across the four winds of this earth, kicking this word in sincerity and in truth. Shalom.